Okay, so I think maybe a few others are hopping on, but we'll go ahead and get started for the sake of time since we're super late. We are doing High Performance Habits with Brendan Burchard, and this is High Performance Habit number 4, increase productivity. And so at the beginning of this chapter, if you guys are like me, I get a little bit confused on it's actually section 2, social habits. So I get confused when it talks about sections like this. But he tells a story of Athena, who's a school administrator, who basically says she's busier than she's ever been. She has meetings all day. She's up late every single night. It says my internet connection is unstable. So if I'm wonky, let me know because I'm on the hotspot on my phone because sometimes ours is funny. But she says she's up late every night. She doesn't feel like she's making progress, even though she's kind of going through the motions. And so he said he asked her the question that every type A dreads being asked, and that is, are you happy? And she kind of scowls a little bit and says, well, happy enough, I guess. It's just that I think there must be a better way. Okay, you guys are frozen, so I don't know if I'm frozen. Kim, am I frozen? Okay, thank you. You're the only one that I can see, so I appreciate that. She says, it's just that she thinks there must be a better way. I'm on page 174 if you're following along. And he says, what better way would that be? And she said, then killing myself working this hard to get what feels like nowhere. And so he talks about that she's saying she wished she would have accomplished bigger projects, and she's already trying so hard to maintain. She hasn't advanced as fast as she'd like, and her work balance is a mess. She's pushing and she's juggling, reinventing the wheel with every project, fighting fires, scrambling, and she just feels like everything she does is never, ever enough. I don't know about you guys, but this chapter hit me in the feels. every corner of it, and it's really pretty irritating. So, and he says on page 175, one of the worst feelings in the world is being incredibly busy, but feel like you're not making any progress. Wes says, feels like you're describing me. Okay, because I felt like that exactly. I've been very frustrated reading this book, and it's because it's exactly what I need to read. But I know by show of hands, you would all have your hands up if I could see you, that we've all felt like this, whether in life or in this Plexus business. I can tell you this Plexus business brings out the things that I'm probably not doing well in life. I realize I'm not doing them well anywhere. Or not well enough, I should say. So she had to learn the difference between just getting things done and reaching high performance productivity, which is what we're learning about. He said high performers have a very deliberate approach in planning their days, projects, and tasks compared to underperformers. They score well on statements such as, I'm good at setting priorities and working on what's important, or the statement, I stay focused and avoid distractions and temptations. And when compared to their peers, they are more productive, yet also happier, less stressed, and more rewarded over the long term. He says that happiness finding is especially relevant since many people believe that they can't possibly do more without compromising their well-being or sense of balance. And that is not true, which is good for me to hear because sometimes I get caught in that rat race. High performers do find a way to produce more. They eat healthier, they work out more, and they still feel a greater love for taking on new challenges more than their peers. They complete more activities. They report being more excellence-driven than their peers. And none of this, I love this sentence on page 176, is because they are superhuman or over-caffeinated, okay? They are not, I hate to admit it, the Tom Brady's of the world. Like, they weren't just woke up one day and they were that good and smacked the Chiefs out of our chance to go to the Super Bowl. Feeling a little mean right now, but I'm serious. Like, you look at those people and you think they're superhuman, but that is not the case. They have chosen to have deliberate habits, which is what we're going to learn to do. So productivity basics on page 177. It says, I love these quotes. They're always very appropriate. The day is always his who works with serenity and great aims. Ralph Waldo Emerson, smart fella. So the fundamentals of becoming more productive are setting goals, maintaining energy and focus. If no goals, no focus, no energy, then you're dead in the water, right? Which is what we're learning as we read these things, or this book, and all the other personal development that we've done. And I love this because I felt like I was thinking a little bit of our team when I read this. Says groups that have clear and challenging goals almost always outperform those without explicit goals. And that group goals inspire people to work more quickly and for longer periods and pay attention to the tasks that matter. I can tell you what, it's more fun working with you guys and doing IPA with you guys than doing it by myself, right? doing a book study with you guys or doing an event with you guys is way more fun to do it together. So it's no wonder that we step up and actually succeed. And we'll work harder with each other than we would for ourselves, right? I love that. Also talks about energy and that good sleep, nutrition, and exercise are huge enhancers of productivity. Not just your productivity, but entire economies can be tied to their citizens' nutrition habits. And that energy also encompasses positive emotions. It's an undisputed fact that happier people are more productive, right? And it really says the old advice of smile and you'll get more done does play true. He's not saying be fake, but literally if you are smiling and you're happy, then things are going to happen. It says one study found that just watching a comedy clip to bring some joy to your life before doing serious work can increase productivity. And it also helps you, if you're going to be productive, you got to maintain focus. I don't know about you guys, but I really related on the bottom of page 178, when he talked about all the input, all the data, all the stuff that we have. Sometimes we get in what's called analysis paralysis. We are paralyzed by all of this data. Too much time we spend and analyze data and reports and numbers, when all we really need to do is send, share, invite, connect, have relationships, love on people and love them well, send, share, invite, follow up, meet someone for coffee. Like, you don't need all the other fancy stuff. Network marketers were doing network marketing before Facebook existed, and they were doing it with send, share, invite, and coffee dates. Like, women were selling makeup and driving pink Cadillacs. They might not have been making the money we are, but they were successful because they were in relationships and they were reaching out to people. So we don't need to overcomplicate things and be in analysis paralysis. He says this is the reason that we never check our email first thing in the morning, because it causes us to have overwhelm and reactivity, which is the emotion or mindset you do not want to frame your day with, okay? And he says distraction is another downer. I don't know about you guys, but I have kids, and my kids are distracting. Leslie was over here a little bit this evening. She knows my kids are distracting. So I know that if I want to get some real work done, I go to a coffee shop. I leave my home. And even if my kids aren't here, guys, guess what's distracting? Those crumbs on the counter. Yeah, I do too. I love them too, Leslie. The crumbs on the counter, the laundry that needs done, dinner that needs put in, those bills that need paid. I have to totally check out of all other things and just focus on what I'm doing, or I don't get things done sometimes because I'm easily distracted. He also says that multitasking itself is a distraction. How many of us have said, I'm a great multitasker. I'm a mom. I can do this. We say those things, but we all know that when we're multitasking, we are not giving our 100% effort to anything. And really, we might be doing a lot of things, but none of those things can get our 100% what word am I looking for? I'm totally blank. But we can't commit 100% to any one of those things. So we're not doing them well, okay? It is incompatible with the peak concentration states that are associated with high performance and quality work. Multitasking. I said, yikes, is what my notes say next to that. The final culprit is interruption. Several times a day, any given task, anybody in a large organization or anywhere is interrupted. Once they are interrupted, they have trouble focusing again and catching back up to what they were doing. It says they don't just bounce back. Instead, they average 2 other tasks before they get back to the original effort. So I know that my husband says when you walk into his classroom, if a kid walks in late or needs a drink or goes to the bathroom, whatever that is, it takes him minutes, if not 10 minutes, to refocus the class to what they were doing before that kid walked in squirreling around and flossed before he sat in his seat. Literally, you have to refocus, and those kids struggle. So I realize that on a much smaller scale or larger scale, it affects all of us. On page 180, the work-life balance debate. I love this quote, kind of hate it. One of the most common ways for the modern person to maintain self-deception is to keep busy all the time. Daniel Putnam. How many of us feel like we're being productive because we're busy, when in all reality, we're in a hamster wheel, right? We're like, what did I do all day? Hello, like my hand could be in air all the time. So he basically says that. He's come to realize that those who don't think work-life balance is possible believe this because either A, they've never made a fully conscious, consistent effort to define, seek, or measure that balance, or B, they simply define work-life balance using an impossible to achieve standard, okay? So when they say it cannot be done, I love this because we talk about bringing things down to our level. He reminds them that human beings have crossed oceans, we've summited the highest mountains, we've built skyscrapers. So if you believe a better work-life balance is impossible, you've already lost that fight. We know mindset matters. We know that we have to believe we can find it, and that if we believe we can find it and we can make ourselves do it, that it will happen. I can tell you right now, it seems kind of hard. It seems a little bit impossible. Laura, I'm so sad about our Chiefs, but I'm glad you joined us. It does seem hard and impossible, but I believe we can all do it. We're on the bottom of page 180, Laura. So it says, basically, those people have simply never tried. We'll spend 10 months planning the achievement of a work project, not a single day planning more balance in our upcoming week. Why? Like, our day-to-day and our week-to-week matters probably way more, and we're going to be way better at that thing 10 months down the road than, if we're doing what we're doing now. So it says the great mistake most people make is to think of balance in terms of evenly distributed hours. The vast majority of us, prepare to be shocked if you haven't read this yet, spend 30% of our lives working, assuming it's a 40-hour work week, 30% sleeping, and 30% doing other stuff. So most people have a lot more time off and more time with their families than they think. It's just that we are not intentional about that time, and we don't enjoy that time enough. Ring a bell with anybody? And the average American watches 4 to 5 hours of television per day. Okay, I usually don't watch that much TV, but I did watch a game tonight. But true, like, we have the time. People always say we don't have the time for this business. I don't have time to get those things done. We all have. I remember being on a call with Celeste Gwynn, no nonsense lady, and she said, I have the same 24 hours you do. And I thought, oh my gosh, she has the same 24 hours I did, and she's kicking butt. What is my excuse? Literally. But it's so, so true. So we all have 24 hours in a day. We are on page 181, Jillian, if you're following along mid page. So he says, instead of trying to balance hours, try to balance happiness or progress in your major life arenas. Page 182. I think this is a brilliant idea, and it reminds me of our vision training we just did. He said he has people organize life into 10 distinct categories: health, family, friends, intimate relationships, which is, your spouse or significant other, mission or work, finances, adventure, hobby, spirituality, and emotion. Like, does that not parallel with all of our vision stuff we just talked about at the beginning of 2019? He wants them to rate their happiness on a scale of 1 to 10 and write their goals in each, which is what we did. And do that on Sunday nights. Rate those areas every single Sunday night. Most of them have never, ever done that before. And so then they need to know what that factors into how they find their balance. He says, if you're not consistently measuring the major arenas of your life, then you couldn't possibly know what the balance you seek is or is not. I don't know what that is, guys. I truly don't. I'm going to make that part of my Sunday ritual in my planner that I own, thanks to Plexus. And I'm going to see where I'm at each week, because I want work-life balance. I desire it. I've done better than I used to, but I have so much work to go in this area. So he says this activity is really just a simple check-in. Kind of reminds me of our accountability calls, right? Like, we're just checking in to see where we are accountable to ourselves. You talk about your weekly activity, and in 6 weeks of people doing this, they saw dramatic increases in their sense of well-being and work-life balance, which is incredible. He said Athena, the gal that he interviewed at the very beginning of the chapter, said she had never thought about those aspects of her life outside of work for years. That's sad, but how many of us haven't either? Like, how many of us haven't sat down, and we might think about those things, but we don't actually think about, where we are, like how satisfied we are with those things, what our happiness is, rate our happiness in those. So if we're honest, our lack of attention to the important areas of our life is no one's fault but our own, right? Amen to that. It's our fault. It's not really so much about evenly distributed hours as feelings. It's not about the hours you spend, but the harmony you feel. And I think if you're in balance, you're going to feel harmony, right? It should feel like everything flows together. You will always feel out of balance if you're doing work that you don't find engaging and meaningful. People sometimes are engaged and do enjoy their work, but they can be fried from too much stress or too many hours on the job, because there's a fine line between being busy and burned out. But it says burnout is often just being fatigued, and that can be a simple fix. Short mental, physical refreshers, which I love, what we'll talk about in a minute. You'll see significant improvement. You don't need to quit your job. You just need to change what you do, right, to get through that day. So on page 184, I love take gasp, a break. Like, we're not going to die if we do this, right? Like, you should get up out of your chair, not only to get more water and to go pee, but to do something, to move, right? So take longer breaks. Take your vacation. Give yourself intermittent breaks throughout the day. I love his suggestion of standing up intermittently, and that your work productivity can increase by 45%. Who's been doing this or trying to be more aware doing this since you started reading this chapter? Anybody? Okay, have you noticed the difference? I can notice a difference too. Yeah. And then you think about that, his just mind clearing, not mind clearing, but you know what I mean, kind of release exercises from the previous chapters. I've been thinking about those too, just to transition. I noticed a huge change. So if you haven't tried it yet, try it. And I've find myself kind of doing high knees on my way to the kitchen and back and doing something just to break up what I'm doing before I sit back in the chair and do something else. It's been a game changer, you guys. It says it's self-evident that our minds need rest to restore neurochemicals and increase our future attention. This is so common sense. We know it. We know our kids need a break. We know they need to get up and wiggle. We know they need all these things. So we also need those. It's okay. If you want to feel more energized, creative, and effective at work and still leave work with enough oomph for the life part, the ideal break point is to stop your work and give your mind and body a break every 45 to 60 minutes. So he says, get up from your chair, take a fast stroll. I know when Wes covered, I think it was one of the chapters she covered, that she said he was doing like a quick 3-minute bike ride. He'll do some yoga stretching. He says he does this even on a plane. No matter where he is, he never breaks from his routine. Now, I would say if I'm napping on the plane, I might not wake up. But if not, you should get up and move your hiney every 45 to 50 minutes. You can also do the release stuff we just talked about, or ask yourself those questions from the previous chapter of who needs me on my A game the most right now. What is not included in these breaks, remember, is checking email, text, or social media. How many of us spend our downtime doing those things when that is not downtime, right? Because we're still plugged in, we're still engaged. And if we're honest, a lot of those things are our job, even though we do a lot of it for fun. You don't just message your friend back, because then you're going to see that potentials message, or you're going to see that disgruntled team member who hasn't lost 50 pounds and she's not happy. Something's going to happen and you're not going to get the break you need. So do not do that. So it says achievers often brush off this advice because they're going to power through. They don't need breaks. He's calling bull honky on that. That is why they feel so wiped out. Okay. Top performers found that they don't necessarily practice or work longer hours. They are more effective in those practice sessions, or simply have more sessions, not longer ones. If you're more productive, because we're practicing our high performance habits, we don't need to practice for longer. So it says it's counterintuitive, but it's true. By slowing down or taking a break once in a while, you'll work faster, leaving more time for areas of your life. So every 50 minutes, take a break. Never, ever, ever break that. Okay. So practice 1, increase the outputs that matter. Nothing is less productive than to make more efficient what should not be done at all. Peter Drucker. Holy smokes, how much time have we spent doing things we shouldn't do at all? And we tried to make them more efficient. And in all reality, they were a complete and total waste of time. I hope I'm not the only one. So if you want to be extraordinary, you need to figure out the productive outputs that matter most in your field of industry. Music writers are going to write more music. Scientists are going to write more papers. Babe Ruth is going to take more swings. It actually mentions Tom Brady in this book. I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes is going to throw more footballs. So if you want to be a high performer, you're going to exceed in your area of expertise, okay? You will have mastered the art of prolific quality output, or your PQO. Okay, when I said this in my head, I had trouble saying that, so I hope I don't butcher this every time I say it. Your PQO. That does not roll off the tongue very well. Prolific quality output. We are going to produce more high quality output than our peers in the long term, because we're going to be more effective, better known, and more remembered. So high performers, they aim their attention and consistent efforts towards their PQO and minimize any distractions, including opportunities. That was a little bit of a stinger too, because sometimes those things we say, well, it's work or it's this, but if it's an opportunity that isn't aligned with our PQO, it's not what we should be spending our time on, right? Because that will steal us away from our craft. People spend eons of time on worthless activities, say creating folders and organizing their email, even though these have nothing to do with real productivity. There's an actual study in 2011 that said hundreds of email users found that people who create complex folders are less efficient in finding what they need than simply using search or threading. So spend your time basically on what matters most. That's what he's saying. Real work isn't replying to everyone's false emergency, shuffling papers, deleting junk emails, trying to look good, attending meetings. Real work is producing quality output that matters. I would say this for us is real work is share, send, invite, follow up. How many times have you gotten ready to send messages and you sit down and there's 4 messages from people? I always, the disgruntled person that hasn't lost 50 pounds, someone else who wants to quit, your sister who had a breakup with her boyfriend, whatever it might be, and you never got your messages sent. That is a false emergency. That is stuff that is not a priority. I can tell you the longer I'm in this business, the more I'm like, that can wait. There are things that can wait, and your personal business has to come first. Your personal reach out, your personal follow-ups has to come first, and then you can start with the rest of them, okay? So you have to kind of go through that priority list in your mind. So you have to figure out what your relevant PQO is. And I only highlighted one sentence in this whole paragraph. The sales rep might go after more meetings with qualified prospects. Any one of those things could relate to you, but if we are trying to help people and change people's lives, we've got to talk to prospects. We've got to sit them down, send, share, invite, follow up. That's all it is, guys. It's so easy, but it's just as easy not to do it. We've read that in other books. I don't know which book. I think maybe even Romy said that, and maybe even clear back to what to say when you talk to yourself. Like, it's just as easy to not practice those mantras and positive affirmations as it is to do them. Like, so it's easy to not do them. So figure out what you are supposed to produce and learn the priorities in the creation, quality, and frequency of that output. That is one of the greatest breakthroughs that you can have in your career. So he says that he wanted to obviously grow in, the business that he's in. And he said one day he was sitting in a cafe, middle of page 190. He realized he'd spent the all day working, but really had nothing to show for it. I thought, not one thing I've done today is going to advance my career or be remembered by me or anyone else 10 years from now. I still remember that conversation in my head. If you're honest with yourself, you want to create things that matter. You want to know that a good day's work produces something worthwhile, something that will be a part of your important contributions to others in the world, something that shows you care about your craft. That was kind of a hard one for me too. Guarantee I've spent days telling Dustin I was going to go get work done. And I thought later, God, I spent the whole day away from my kids, a Sunday afternoon. And what did I do? Like, what did I actually accomplish? Because we can all be busy. That does not mean we're actually working, right? So hopefully this chapter is helping us kind of hone in on that. We all have things that we have to do that don't make us feel like legends. Taking out the trash, that's not what we're talking about. Those are things you have to do to survive. We are talking about the things that are going to help your business grow. So he said he decided if he was going to be a professional speaker, his PQO would be the number of paid speaking gigs at a certain booking fee. So that was kind of his level of measurement. He stopped all wasteful conversation of anything less than that. And he started building marketing materials and videos of people who were getting booked at the levels he wanted to reach. He was looking at those people. Like, we look at people where we want to be, and we think, what are they doing? So I don't know if you heard Jessica Heffley say, whoever's on the leaderboard, she goes to those pages, even if it's a brand new silver. If they are consistently on the leaderboard, she goes and follows them to see what they're doing because they're good at their trade. It doesn't matter if they're getting paid as a diamond yet. You're going to emulate what those leaders are doing. That is good advice. And you have to be not proud to follow anybody at any level if they clearly are if they're seeing success, right? So he said if he hadn't figured out his PQO, he would have never had the blessing of reaching all of his students in his online stuff. I would say if we don't figure out our PQO, think about the millions of people out there with health issues that we're never going to reach. The millions of kids with anxiety. That's what gets me in the feels that I'm never going to reach if I don't figure out how to effectively share my message or my family's message. So he says he's not sharing this to boast, but to convey the tremendous power of deciding what your PQO is and then going for it. You can't figure it out and just sit back and kick your feet up. You have to go after it. He honed his focus for the PQOs that mattered in his career and gave those outputs his obsessive attention and dedication continuously over the long term. Top of page 192, it says, no matter what topic or type of deliverable they decided to get productive toward, I have them reorient their entire work schedule towards that endeavor. So we should have a 60-40 balance. 60% seems to be that sweet spot where you are spending time furthering your career. 40% is team strategy, team management, everyday tasks, running a business, blah, blah, blah. But 60% needs to be where you need to be on the things that matter. So I would say, again, that's your personal business. So that's reaching out. That is launch parties for your new level one. That is following up. That is prospecting. That is making new friends. That is send, share, invite. 60% of your time. I can tell you, I don't always spend 60% of my time there. And I know the times that I don't and the times that I do. So he says it talks about going all in, but it doesn't mean that you are going to be you can't give 100% of your time to anything, not at any given time. There's no way. But you can't shirk everyday things that you have to do, these duties, but you can and must strategize and maximize your time working on outputs that make your career important and influential. Here's the worst page of the book I've ever read because it really punched me in the face. It's page 193. And it says that the most common excuses or delusions are procrastination and perfectionism. Don't like that because I've always called myself a perfectionist and a procrastinator. So clearly I got some work to do, like lots of it. It says that procrastination is not really a thing. It's not part of the human psyche. It's not even a personality trait. It's not a result of poor time management that can easily be pointed at. It's really a motivational problem. It's that you're not working on things that intrinsically matter to you. It can be about anxiety or fear, but far more often it stems from working on things that don't excite you, engage you, or matter to you. If you love what you're creating or contributing, you'll experience less procrastination. I can tell you the more I've gone on with this and gotten out of my own way, my anxiety's gotten better and my fear has gotten better. I don't procrastinate like I once did in Plexus. Perfectionist is something I remember being called as a child. And somebody, like he's saying, I'm a perfectionist. I have to know it's exactly right and that it'll be loved. And it's not really, it says it's a delay logic fancied up to look respectable. The reason people don't finish more things isn't perfectionism. It's that they rarely even begin or they get tangled up in doubt or distraction. If you were a true perfectionist, you would at least have completed and released work, since perfecting it comes after you've completed, released, and then improved on it. Basically, let's just get to work. I can tell you, I've often said that Plexus is the first thing that I've done that I felt totally out of control, that I went forward with anyway when I didn't feel like I had it right. And I have I've never done that in almost any other arena if I couldn't fully control it and didn't think I had a full handle on it. But I think that God just propelled me out there and I had no choice but to share no matter how much I screwed it up at first. I just couldn't help but not share. So performance prompts to help us on page 194 are, number one, the outputs that matter most to my career are, number two, some things I could stop doing so I can focus more on PQO and number three, the percentage of my weekly time I will allocate to PQO is, and the ways I'll make that happen are. I would spend some time answering these questions, just like we have on every chapter. It's pretty significant. I think it's life-changing. I know it's business-changing. I think it'll be really good for all of us. So page 194, practice 2, chart your 5 moves. It says, I believe that half the unhappiness in life comes from people being afraid to go straight at things. Humans are masterful jugglers. That strength serves all of us up to a point, and then it destroys us, right? Kind of like multitasking. We already talked about that for sure. Just 1 second. Not trying to multitask, trying to make sure my mama is not calling me back. Okay, so most people can reach our first levels of success with our ability to multitask with excellence. But here's the point. We're busy, but we're not progressing with purpose, right? Which is why we're reading this book. A lot of driven people think they don't need well-defined plans. I was one of those. You have talent, so you think you can just get in the game, hustle, wing it, and see what happens. I was one of those. And it says, to the point, God-given talent can help you get ahead. That advantage dies quickly. As soon as other team players have actual experience and plans, you're toast. I wouldn't say you're toast. I just think you see people go to the top and you're like, why are they still growing and why am I not? Why is someone doing this and I'm not? Clearly, they have a better plan. They have a better system. They're doing something more efficiently, right? So it says it's terribly difficult for high performers to hear because the inevitable distraction that comes from unfocused efforts is what can make you lose that edge a little bit. But when they start making a lot of things happen with no unifying trajectory, you begin losing. Okay, but when they start making a lot of things happen with no unifying trajectory, they begin losing their power. So it says the issue is that people simply get away with not planning for a long, long time. And again, I'm fully admitting that I was one of those people. So to become a high performer, you have to think before acting. It says sometimes long-term projects require you to set a plan as best as you can, then figure out things on the fly, but you still have to have that underlying plan, okay? I used to say, and I still am to a certain extent, a fly by the seat of my pants gal, you have to have a plan. You can't live entirely life like that, or my kids would never have clothes, never have food, and never get to school. Like, you do have to have a plan, like school, a calendar. It has to happen. Having a plan and working through it step by step is more important than you think, and it focuses scattered thinking, which is huge for me. So Brendan wants us to ask ourselves, think of the most ambitious dream you'd like to take on. So I would say, what is your plexus goal, that big scary goal that we've talked about? Or maybe not even the big scary one, but like the really big scary one where you really want to be. If there were only 5 major moves to make that goal happen, what would they be? Once you are clear on those 5 goals, you have to put them in your calendar, scheduling the bulk of your time in protected blocks. Protected meaning no one's going to interrupt that time. It's not a open time that you're at the coffee shop, or, you know, it might be. No, this is a protected block of time, which you do nothing but make progress towards that goal. And so if he showed up and said, show me your calendar, what should it look like? He said, if I can't discern from your weekly and monthly calendar what major moves you're working toward, then you're not optimizing your time, and you're at risk of getting sucked into a life of reaction and distraction. Wesley says sapphire by June. I love that. Drop it in here if you want. I'm saying diamond by June. I've been saying it. It scares the heck out of me, but I'm working harder to be a high producer and spend my time on quality things. So he says, we don't want to be sucked into a life of reaction and distraction. He said, or you're just going to have to take years getting a result that others could do in months. I know Angie has shared this. She said she's had a safe goal. And so sometimes, like she said, like she could have done that shorter. She wonders if she couldn't have. And I know she could. So I'm looking at that thinking we could do something in years that we could do. There you go. Angie has dropped hers in there. Awesome. Sapphire by March 31st, or Emerald by March 31st. Doing something that we could do in months, right? So high performers plan out almost everything: workouts, learning, meetings, vacation. And it's not to be overcomplicated. It's to protect those blocks of time and protect what they need to be doing. So he goes through, and I'm not going to go through all of it because it's kind of redundant. He goes through how his example of the steps to his 5 moves to getting his book published. To writing a book. So I'm going to skip ahead to page 202 where it says, he walks through it, but we're going to walk through it on our own. It says it doesn't matter whether you know how to achieve your 5 moves at first. The important thing is that for every major goal you have, you figure out the 5 moves. If you don't know the moves, you lose. That's true, right? If somebody says, what's your goal? You know your goal. Okay, so what's step number 1? How are you going to get to it? And you're like, we need to know. We need to know those things. And so this is the integral part. At least for me, I was like, oh shoot, like I really have to have this written down, and I really have to schedule my time according to this. And I hope I'm not alone thinking, I don't think I've been doing it quite this way. And this is what's going to make us high performers. So it's a simple process. Bottom of page 202. Number 1, decide what you want. Number 2, determine the 5 major moves that will help you leap towards that goal. Number 3, do deep work on each of those 5 moves, at least 60% of your work week going to these efforts until they are complete. And then number 5, designate all else as distraction, tasks to delegate, or things to do in blocks of time you've allocated the remaining 40% of your time. It seems almost too simplistic, but I can't tell you how many hopeful strivers I meet who cannot quickly answer what are the 5 major projects you are working on in sequential order to achieve what you want. High performers know this answer. So I will challenge you guys to work on what those 5 things are. So he says, at this point, people will say, but I know someone extremely successful who doesn't do plans. Well, those are outliers. Outliers do exist. But the question isn't whether or not they exist. This was a big ouch for me, it's how much they're leaving on the table. So they might be doing amazing, but how much more potential do they have if they would hone in on those 5 areas, okay? It's just a little planning that could significantly improve their contributions. And for the rest of us, it's good to remember that without discipline, our dreams will forever remain delusions. I circled, outlined, and starred. Don't spend years on what could be done in months with better planning and more focused execution. Know your 5 moves. So I encourage you to listen and dig into this text until you figure out what your 5 moves are. So performance prompts. Number 1 on page 204. The biggest goal or dream I have that I need to plan out right now is, number 2, the 5 moves that would help me progress swiftly toward accomplishing that dream are. Number 3, the timeline for each of my 5 moves will be. Number 4, 5 people who have achieved that dream who I could seek or study, seek out, interview, and model are. And number 5, the less important activities or bad habits I'm going to cut out of my schedule so I can focus more time on the 5 moves in the next 3 months include. And I think that's huge. When you are serious about this, you will start cutting out essentials and distractions so you can move on. So I will hurry through this. I know it's taking a long time and it's late. So practice 3 on page 205, get insanely good at key skills. We have to master our key skills, and that's long been associated with better productivity and performance, both on a huge scale and on an individual scale. The goal is to determine the 5 major skills, which goes along with our 5 things we need to do, and you need to develop over the next 3 years to grow into the person you want to become. He said one principle lies at the beginning or the middle of this effort is everything is trainable. No matter what you want to learn, with enough training, practice, and intention, you can be more proficient. If you don't believe this, your journey stops here. You have to believe that you can learn things. You can't say, I cannot do it. When people say I can't, it's usually code for I'm unwilling to do the long-term training and conditioning necessary to achieve that. Remember, everything is trainable. Another ouch moment for me, because we'll say, I'm just not good at that. Well, that's because we don't want to put in the work to be good, because we could be good if we wanted to be, right? It's all a matter of our mindset and our effort. So he said he talks about his car accident. He's told this story before, but 20 years ago, he was in a car accident. He faced his last questions. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? Not everyone cared about those lessons, but a few of his friends really felt like he should share that story, and he felt like he should share. He was kind of inspired, and he said he felt more compelled to share that story, and he realized that a lot of authors listed lecturer, speaker, workshop facilitator, and so he thought, I'm going to master that skill of public speaking. And so he got committed to begin a process of learning that he calls progressive mastery. He said, you can hope to develop a skill with some practice and repetition, or you can ensure that you become world-class in that skill through progressive mastery. So the concept of that is very different from how most people approach skill development. It says most people get interested in an idea, try it a few times, see if they're good. If they're not good, they just chalk it up to, yeah, I'm not that good at it, and I quit, which is kind of what we just talked about, right? That's not what it is. It says some carry on using brute repetition. That made me think about the guy in the gym, just pounding weights and maybe still not doing it right with poor technique. Brute repetition and hoping that if you do it enough, you'll become proficient and progress. But we all know people who have done things hundreds of times and we're like, it's still not the best. So repetition rarely leads to a high performance. That's why you have to understand progressive mastery. So we have to figure out what we want to master and go through these 10 steps. Number 1, determine what skill. Number 2, set specific stretch goals on your path to develop that. Stretch goals, not safe goals. Number 3, attach high levels of emotion and meaning to the journey and our results. Number 4, identify the factors critical to success and develop your strengths in those areas. Number 5, develop visualizations that clearly imagine what success and failure look like. Number 6, schedule challenging practices developed by experts through careful thought. Number 7, measure your progress and get feedback from outside sources. Number 8, socialize your learning and efforts, by practicing or competing with others. Number 9, continue setting higher level goals so that you keep improving. Number 10, teach others what you are learning. Okay. So he says, like deliberate practice, progressive mastery involves getting a coach, challenging yourself beyond your comfort zones, developing mental representations of what success should be, and tracking your progress and fixing your weaknesses. So we can relate this really, really quickly. We'll hurry through this to like if you want to be a better swimmer. Number 1, you determine you want to be a better swimmer. Number 2, you set a goal for how fast you can swim. That's measurable, right? Number 3, before every practice, you remind yourself of that goal. maybe whatever your why is. Number 4, you determine that critical factor was your ability to work your hips proficiently and stamina. Number 5, you visualize the perfect race. You imagine in detail how you'd move through the water. Number 6, you work with an expert swim coach to give you outside feedback. Number 7, you measure that progress in a journal every time you swim, looking through it and reviewing it. Number 8, you consistently swim with people you really enjoy swimming with, and you enter competitions so you could be against people who are at a higher level than you. Number 9, after every session, you set higher goals for the next session. And number 10, once a week, you formally mentor another swimmer on your team or teach a class at a local community center. It says, can you see how this approach would lead to much better results than just hopping into a pool and trying to get better? Even if you spent the exact same number of hours in a pool, these principles would help you outperform mindless repetition. That made me think, if we really put work into our send, share, invite, if we really put work into our relationships, okay, not only is our Plexus business going to grow, how much better are we going to be at just relationship building, truly connecting with other people? How much better of a daughter, a mom, a sister, a friend, a coworker? How much better, like, just human beings are going to be if we put that much effort into send, share, invite, authentically share the things that we do in our business than just repeatedly copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, giving it zero thought. Like, how much better if you're going to spend 10 hours anyway, why don't you spend them doing something amazing? So that means when number 7 bounces around, you're like, okay, here's the deal, Laura. I'm going to send you these messages and have you look at them and totally tear them apart. Give me your 100% honest, opinion of them. And I'm totally okay with constructive criticism. Help me out. So we need those outside sources. We need to journal. We need to look back. We need to teach others. That's what makes us better at our craft. That's what makes us better. And not only are we better, again, at Plexus and growing a business, we're going to be better people because our craft is loving on people. Don't you all want to know how to love people better? Like I do. I'm a people person. I want to hug and love and all the feels all the time. Like, look out, everybody. So performance prompts. So he talks a little bit about how he's used mastery techniques, obviously, to help the best of the best. So how's that going to help us on page 213? Answer these 3 questions. Number 1, 3 skills I could develop that would help me feel more confident or capable are. Number 2, the simple steps I could take to improve those skills include. And number 3, the coaches or mentors I could seek out concerning these skills are. And I really love the bottom of page 213. Only one ride. Only put off until tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. Pablo Picasso. Okay. Ever since I read that quote, I have sent out more follow-ups, more send, share, invites, more just, hey, how are you doing? You're a great friend. I was thinking about you today because I don't want to die tomorrow with that left undone. Even it doesn't further my business. It's because I love people and I want to love them well. Don't do that whole why do tomorrow what is that saying? It's for procrastinators like me. Why do today what you can put off until tomorrow? No, some idiot made that quote. That's for idiots who don't want to do stuff, who are being lazy and using that as an excuse. Only put off until tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. So life is short. We're only allotted so much time to make our mark. Stop producing outputs that don't make your soul sing. Stop copy pasting things that don't matter to you. Send something meaningful. Send those amazing videos. Reach out authentically, guys. Determine what outputs really matter to you at this stage in your life. Chart your 5 moves to accomplish your big goals and go make it happen while getting insanely good at what you do. From there, the world is yours. Period. I love this book. It is so challenging and it's making me think. And that's all I got for you guys. And I'm so sorry it's late. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. And the Chiefs are done, so no more delays in book study. But feel free to unmute yourself and let me know if there's anything you guys got out of these chapters. Angie, I didn't open that up. Sapphire by December. That's so exciting. Senior Ruby by June. Yay, Leslie.
So this chapter probably spoke to me more than any of the other ones have so far. So yeah, I've been saying since I got back from jewel training that I was going to leave the house and go somewhere else in the evenings to get some work done. And I haven't done that yet. So that is my first thing I'm going to implement.
And I know you and I have talked about this, Wes, but that's huge. Even if your kids aren't home, it's literally laundry. It's whatever that stares at you. And, you know, can't we all find something? Like, I hate cleaning my bathrooms, but I could probably scrub a toilet and it won't hurt my feelings more than sending a cold message. Like, the toilet doesn't talk back and the toilet doesn't hate me. So it's kind of enticing sometimes. I hear you, though.
I really loved what he said about like not having to have equal time to have balance, because I feel like I'm spending so much more time on my business right now than I am with my family, but like a lot of that time my kids are off playing and they don't want me right there anyways, and then I'm feeling guilty because I'm not playing with them, but they don't even want me to play with them. So it's like, okay, like set aside, that couple hours. Like for me in the season of life I'm in, I can't necessarily chunk my time out very well because I'm like nursing a baby every couple hours and stuff. But I'm thinking if I'm intentional with setting aside family time, that the rest will fall into place. So instead of setting work hours, set family hours and be intentional about that. I loved that.
I think that is so great. And you know what my little one will say once in a while, Angie, is he'll say, Mommy, don't you have some Plexus you can go to? Which means like, can you leave me alone so I can watch my iPad or I can do whatever? Like or can we go to the well? Like, cause he wants a snack and he wants me to do Plexus. But I forget, like he gets a little bit of benefit to have his own fun thing while I'm doing that. There can be a balance, and it can be a beautiful balance. You just have to find what works best for you. Because they don't want us all the time. True story.
I would say what I've had to do lately as far as time management is I quit coming home for lunch because that's my TV has been my TV time and my brain dead time because I don't get it any other. I always have to fight everyone else for the TV. So I don't come home anymore. I usually just walk across the street to the library and take my laptop with me and my phone and work for 45 minutes and then walk back over to the office. But that I've had to do that because even being home with my kids home or whatever it be, it's tough in the evening to actually be able to focus. I get the time, but to be actually dig in and get the work done has been really tough.
Distractions, right? I get it. And knowing that each distraction, it's going to take you that much longer and you do maybe 2 more tasks before you refocus. And even when you refocus, you're never back at your original effort. I feel a little bit less guilty for all the things I've not accomplished because clearly I'm not setting myself up to win if I'm in a distracting environment. So, but I know how to fix that. Anybody else? This is good stuff.
So something else that helps with that is like when you're sending messages, you guys probably do this, but muting notifications on Messenger. Because if I don't do that, then I get so distracted by messages coming in, and then it's like so much easier to go onto a team thread and answer questions than it is to continue my IPA. So
No, that's really good. And I know from the very beginning of this book, when he first said something to the extent of like your time and you need to like your transition and even getting out of bed as a transition, that's been bad for me forever because I never even got out of bed before Plexus. And I've told that story before. But now I don't check my phone. And even if I see that there's something on there like a message, until I have hugged my kids, looked them in the face, sincerely like told them I love them or whatever without rushing, and I've read my daily devotion. That has made a huge difference in my world to just like kind of center myself before I run off into the craziness of life for the day. Thank you, Mr. Burchard, making me transition and be centered at the start of my day.
I liked when he talked about time blocking and taking that time at the beginning of the week to block that out. That's something I don't do. I fly by the seat of my pants every day. And because of that, then you allow distraction and everything else in. So I'm excited to try that.
I actually, when I think it was Rachel Hollis in the Girl Watch Your Facebook, she talked about, scheduling, your week and There was about, what is your ideal week? And I have to do that to get my workouts in. I sit down on Sunday afternoons. I have a family planning time, and I look at my kids' activities. I get onto the wife's schedule. I put my workouts in so that my family knows where I'm going to be, when I'm going to be home, and when I'm not going to be home. For me, it's been completely life-changing, because I know when I'm cooking a meal, when I'm not, so they're not hitting me the minute I hit the door at 5:15, what's for dinner? They know I'm cooking or I'm not cooking. And if I'm not cooking, figure it out on your own. Luckily, my kids are old enough to do that now. But I agree that you've got to set, even if it's 15 minutes on a Sunday afternoon, so you know what you're doing the next 5 days, got to do it.
I'm going to attempt to do that. I'm working on it. Can the blocks be flexible? I'm working on me.
Always. They can always be flexible.
Angie writes in pen, and her blocks are probably serious. So my blocks are, I'm working on me.
Mine are on Google, and I just drag them around until they're where I want them to be.
Anybody else have anything? I know I set alarms for everything too, and my family hates it because I can sometimes snooze something for an hour, and I'm like, but I won't hit stop until I've done the task that I told myself to do when I set that alarm. So even if I'm distracted for 55 minutes and it's still going off every 10 minutes, I won't hit stop, and it drives them crazy, but I get it done because I hate the sound of my alarm, frankly, but I set it to make myself do whatever I'm supposed to do. Anybody else have anything? Sorry again, it was so late, but and I took longer, but gosh, these chapters are meaty. There's so much good stuff. It's hard to not cover all of it. Okay, guys. Well, if nothing else, happy block scheduling since it's Sunday, and maybe thinking about some of those goals. If not, if you haven't started today, maybe next Sunday. But I think it's a good idea, and we'll see y'all next week. I'll see you all a lot along between now and then, but for book study next week.